Welcome back to week 4 of the gambling show. I'm here with Yanni. How's it going, man?
What's up, dude?
Let's just get straight into the week 3 recap. I'll start first. So the first one I missed was our consensus pick of the week. I'm interested to get Yanni's input on this though. So the Texans -1.5. It was not only the wrong side, it was embarrassingly the wrong side. The Vikings came out and dog walked the Texans. It was not really a competitive game. He just had so much success defensively against CJ Stroud. They were able to score a lot of points. I think Sam Darnold had 4 touchdowns, played clean. And I mean, to me, I'm not buying this Vikings team. I'm just not buying them as being contenders or a great football team. I think that they caught the Texans on like a day, just like a bad day, right? And I think that coupled with the fact that they beat the 49ers the week prior has people way too excited about this football team. But I'm interested to hear your thoughts, Yanni. Are the Vikings a good football team? Are they an elite football team? Are they contenders in the NFC? Or are they frauds?
Well, elite contender is a different question than are they good? That's not the same. Dude, everyone wants things
It
to be
was
like, it's like,
It was
have you
multiple
noticed?
questions. It was like, are they elite?
Yeah,
Are they contenders?
yeah,
Or
yeah,
are
yeah.
they
But
good?
I'm saying, like, to me, that's like that would determine my answer. Are they a good football team? Without a doubt, dude. That back-to-back win is one of the most impressive back-to-back wins I've ever seen in the last like 3 or 4 years. Beating Brock Purdy and the Niners, and then beating CJ Stroud and the Texans when the Texans were on fire and talking Super Bowl contention is really, really impressive. Like, are they legitimate Super Bowl contenders? When we're talking about getting through the NFC and the Super Bowl, I'm certainly not ready to say that. Um, but I think they're a good team. I think Brian Flores is one of the best defensive minds in football, and I think he has a really good read on that Shanahan scheme. And I think he's proven it twice now. Now
Yeah.
he goes against another Shanahan protege this week. To me, that'll tell us a lot. Dude, if he can stuff the Shanahan scheme is 30% of the NFL right now, like 35% of the NFL. If he can stuff that, yeah, they can be a legitimate contender. Just simply off that. If 30% of the teams you play cannot move the ball against you, that's a problem. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
At least the way I have it pegged, this Vikings team, right? Like, I think that they're better than the Bears, but like, if I had to like rank the NFC North teams, like I'd have them in third place in that division. I don't know. We'll see. Long term, I'm selling, but we'll have more on that in a minute.
We'll find out this week, man. We'll
Yeah.
find out this week.
Then the next one, this was our head-to-head matchup, the Titans versus the Packers. Teddy Boy took a big L, so I'll go ahead and cover this game. I don't know what Matt LaFleur did to Malik Willis to make him a good football player, but shouts out to the kid. He performed well. He was able to pass the ball. He looked like a competent NFL quarterback, which he had not for his entire career. Part of my prognostication of this game was that Malik Willis would not be able to function as a quarterback, given the fact that this team, the Titans, gave him away 3 weeks prior for like a seventh round pick or for free. I forgot what it was, but they basically gave him to this team for nothing. And he came back and just kind of beat the brakes off him. He was able to have success against this Titans defense, which I think is still a very good defense. They just kind of got walked all over. Will Levis, we brought him up a lot in our game breakdown. We had our classic pick, Will Levis pick six. He didn't do anything like Twitter clip worthy. I mean, I've seen some screenshots of Will Levis trying to jump over 2 defenders. Like it wasn't as flashy as the first 2 weeks, but he's still not there. He's holding the team back. It was a bad L. I'll take it on the chin. Yanni's 1-0 on the head-to-heads this year. Next was the Panthers Raiders over 39.5. That this one was great. This one was like by halftime, it felt like this one was already over. It was good to see Andy Dalton have success and be able to orchestrate that offense. My fantasy teams are very happy about it. A lot of my priors about the Panthers are pretty happy about it. I think during this game breakdown, I said I didn't have the courage to take the Panthers plus 5.5, and I thought a blowout, like the Raiders blowing them out, was on the table. Turns out I just had that flipped around. The Panthers blowout was on the table, and the Raiders just kind of had a couple late scores to easily get us over the 39.5. Great process bet, I think, for me. Felt really great about it, betting it, and it's good to get one of those every once in a while. Next one was the Ravens minus 1.5. This one to me was another great process bet, and I don't believe the final score really indicated how much of a blowout that game was. The Cowboys were passing a lot at the end of the game. They kind of made it close, which I mean, props to the Cowboys. They've over the past couple of years, they've kind of shown this thing that they do where they just kind of melt when they're down big, and they were down big in this game, and they fought their way back. They couldn't make it all the way to a victory. The Ravens still covered. I was still correct on the bet, but the Cowboys at least showed me something there. But it was absolutely the right side. The Ravens just ran the ball down their throats. Lamar Jackson only dropped back to pass 15 times. The final score says it was competitive. It wasn't really. Then the last one was the Chiefs. This was supposed to be the third leg of the parlay. It would have felt really nice if the Texans had gotten it done against the Vikings. This was another weird one. The Falcons, credit to their defense, they have been able to keep games close and within striking distance. I think the Falcons have I don't have the exact stat, but it feels like they've trailed almost the entire year. And they've always just kind of been within one score of the other team. This was the same old Chiefs, where they look really good, but they just for whatever reason allow teams to hang around. There was a phantom PI call, or I guess probably what should have been a PI call that the Chiefs did in their own end zone. There was some angry bettors saying that it's rigged and the Chiefs are cheating and Pitt should have the Falcons should have had the ball on the one to win the game. Yeah, I don't know. It looked like it probably was a PI to me, but then the refs gave the Falcons three follow-up makeup penalties on their game winning drive or attempting to win the game drive. So I don't know. The Chiefs didn't look great, but it was still a win. It was a good number. I let it rip. So that was my first week over 500. Unfortunately, because the parlay did not hit, I still lost more money. So we're down to $628.04 in the hole, over 6 units in the hole. But the good news is my season record has climbed to 6-9. So still under 500, still a bad better so far this year, but we're going to turn it around. I feel like my process is getting better. My record has gotten better each week. And, as we learn more about the teams, I'm going to be making better picks here.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just start with my record because I'm 7-8, but I've split a parlay every week this year, which is really frustrating. So I'm down 2.5 units overall in the season. Just kind of a tough. Me and Ted are both working our way out of a hole. I love the parlays because of the upside. Kind of bummed that I've come out on the short end of the stick with the split each time. But so the Texans Vikings, I do think I had the right read in the sense that I thought the defenses would be the story of the game. I just didn't know it would only be one of them to the point of 7 points on the Texans. I believe the total was 41. I think it was 34-7 on the game. So the under hit, but the Texans did not, and that blew my parlay as well. Buccaneers, pretty straightforward. Really not a whole lot to say. I think they thought they were going to beat the shit out of the Broncos. I think they thought, no problem, we're going to come in there and slap them around, and it did shit. It was the opposite. They deserved the L in every sense. I saw some crazy thing. I think favorites of over 6 or 6.5 or higher this year are like 2-13, which is just crazy. I think I've lost 2 of those on the Niners and the Bucks the last 2 weeks. 2 of those have been in my picks. The Packers plus 2.5. To me, this was always a bet simply on LaFleur. I think he has established a real culture there. I think anytime Malik Willis was the NFL's leader in rush yards per attempt and pass yards per attempt the last 2 weeks. That's absolutely astounding. It speaks to the culture they have there. It speaks to the depth of roster they have there. They're a complete football team. They're really good. LaFleur's done a really good job of instilling something long lasting and solid there. When you move on from Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, Aaron Rodgers, and you're still winning like that, it's all about LaFleur, and that was really what the bet was on, and it came home. I remember you'll see the same disagreement come up this week. I specifically cited that Will Levis leads the NFL in turnovers and the Packers lead the NFL in turnovers on defense, and that I thought that would decide the game. And sure enough, we saw a pick 6 in the game. So, and the Cardinals plus 3. So this one was really weird. At the 2-minute warning before the game, The ball was snapped with 2:01 by Jared Goff, and he threw a pick six that would have tied the game at 2020. They said that the ball was snapped after the 2 minute warning, and therefore the clock was stopped. That was not the case. It was 2:01 when he snapped it. And it should have been 2020 Jared Goff's ball in the fourth quarter. I was pretty upset about that because I actually feel like I had the right vibe on that game. I feel like it should have been 2020, and then they would have had a chance to retort and go back and forth. So I busted on the bet, but you know, I was not thrilled with the way the refereeing went. So like I said, down 2.5 units, 7-8 on the year. Going to try to turn it around this week.
All right, and let's get into the week four picks. I will start first. I have the Saints Falcons under 41 and a half. I'm riding with the Packers minus 2.5. Finally, not picking against them for a week. I'm picking the Colts plus 2.5. And then I am doing a Monday night parlay with the Titans money line and the Lions minus 3.5. So if the Monday parlay hits, that returns $373.91. The other three single games have a potential return if they all hit of 557.85. Total potential return is 931.76. The cost of the ticket is only $400 because I'm doing one $100 parlay on Monday. And then, so this is interesting. I am now so far in the hole that even if I have a perfect 5-0 week, I am still in the red. But it would be significantly less in the red. So we're gonna just keep making process bets here, follow the process, and am I gonna change as a gambler? Absolutely not.
Yeah, I'm hoping to start digging my way out of my hole too. I felt good about a few of these games. Kind of some reports we got on the weather made me a little nervous about one of my picks. We'll get into it, but I have the Steelers minus 2.5 going head to head with Ted there. I have the Buccaneers plus 1.5, Browns minus 1.5 against the Raiders, Bucks against the Eagles, Titans plus 1.5. Me and Ted are riding together on that one, and then the Lions 3.5 versus Seattle at home. Uh, Potential return 947, total cost 500. I'm down 249. Probably need to go. Well, definitely need to go at least 3-2, hopefully 4-1 this week to almost eliminate the hole I'm in.
All right, let's get into the game breakdowns. I will start first. The Saints are going into Atlanta to play the Falcons, and I have the under at 41 and a half. So 45% of the money is on the under here, and 31% of the bets are on the under here. So that's not really too telling of data. If you want to take anything from it, it's probably less people are betting the under here. So the Saints right now they lead the league in scoring offense, surprisingly, but they only put up 12 points last week against the Eagles. This Eagles defense, we've kind of been beating this drum all year that this Eagles defense is not very good. They haven't really had success stopping anyone except for the Saints team. So it's kind of like a tale of two different looks over the first 3 weeks, right? So the Falcons are averaging 16 points a game and holding opponents to 20.5 points per game. So like right now, at least most of the Falcons games, their defense is doing a good job of keeping them in it. They're really still struggling to score points though, because I personally don't think Cousins is fixed yet. And even though like all of the preseason projection, right, was that this Falcons offense was going to be awesome with all the good tools that they have, it just doesn't look right to me yet, at least on the offensive side of the ball. So at least right now, I think this Falcons team should be profiled as a great defensive team with like kind of a middle of the road offense. So Kamara also popped up on the injury report on Wednesday with a hip and rib issue. He's the engine of this Clint Kubiak offense. He's looked amazing. Like if you drafted him in fantasy, you'll know you're ecstatic about that pick. And he's about
Yeah.
50-50 to even play on Sunday. So that's bad. First of all, if he doesn't play, like okay, who is it? Kendre Miller. You're going to be rolling him out there, trying to have him do the Camaro role. And second, even if he does play, like how good is he going to be, right? How ready to go is he going to be? Is he going to be like just nursing an injury, like toughing it out? Is he going to be really like 100%? It's kind of hard to say. So yeah, I at least the way I look at this game, right? Kind of to my point earlier, the Falcons and Kirk have just kind of been struggling on offense in general, and their defenses kept them in games. One of the things that the Falcons have done really well is run the ball with Bijan. So like I see this game kind of being a ball control game from the Falcons side, where they're just trying to run clock, get move the chains slowly, get first downs. I don't. The Saints defense is good. I don't see them trying to take crazy shots, like crazy deep shots on them. I think they'll just kind of dink and dunk, do what they need to do to move the chains. And Dennis Allen, right? Like he is still a defensive head coach, and in my opinion, he's still not a good head coach. I still think the Saints should get rid of him. Coming into the season, he was the betting favorite to be the first coach fired this like in season. So the first 2 weeks really kind of saved his bacon, at least for now, right? And the Saints were under in 11 out of 17 games last year, and that's speaking to the way Dennis Allen coaches, right? The Saints team, they've kind of pretty consistently had a good, they've consistently had a pretty solid defense. Usually their offense is really bad. We had the 2 week explosion with Clint Kubiak. Everybody kind of got excited about that. They beat the brakes off the Panthers and Bryce Young, and then they steamrolled the Dallas Cowboys, who, if you watch that game on Thursday, I don't think the Cowboys are right personally. So I'm just calling this. I think there's still a little bit of inflation on the Saints and what this team is. And I think they're closer, like as a whole, to being that team we saw last week against the Eagles. Granted, they played the Eagles close. That was a close game, but I think they're closer to that defensive type of team than like a high flying offense. So for all of those reasons, I'm taking the undie here. 41.5 is like a middle of the road number. I wouldn't be shocked to see a 20 to 13 type of game here, 20 to 17 type of final score. What do you think about this one, Yanni?
So I'm actually jealous I didn't take a longer look at this because I've been loving the unders this year, and I think it's a great bet. I think this bet's going to come home. We did these slides earlier. Olave has been basically ruled out with a hamstring um, this week, so he popped up today. So I think it's something like 80% of receivers that come up with a hamstring on the last 2 days of the week don't play. So it looks like Olave is going to be out. They're going to be relying on Shaheed as their number one receiver. And the Falcons had 2 injuries or 3 injuries on their O line. And I think the Falcons are going to have trouble moving the ball. I think the Saints are missing their number one receiver, who's one of the best receivers in the NFL. I think that's a really good bet. I wish I had taken a longer look at that, actually, now that you go over it. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and at least I've had a totals bet every single week so far, and at least, I mean, knock on wood, these can always, a total bet is always liable to just go sideways, right? But so far, I've either been like right near the total within plus or minus a half a point, or just totally on the right side of it. I like this
Yeah.
one. And last year, I rode the Saints under for like 3 weeks straight. That was one of my favorite bets last year. So I'm going back to the well. We'll
Yeah.
see. Hopefully, Clint Kubiak doesn't ruin this for me. But
I'm 2-1 on my totals bets this year. That's you again.
yep, yep, that is me again. And I am taking the Packers minus 2.5 at home against the Vikings in a divisional matchup. So 21% of the money is on the Packers against the spread, and 38% of bets are on the Packers against the spread. So this is definitely like, this is a fade the public spot for me. Like, so this is kind of speaking to my point earlier when we were going over the game breakdowns and everything else, right? Like, in my opinion, this Vikings hype train has just gotten completely out of control. Like, I don't know. Like, I am not buying them as a good football team. I'm just not. Like, they've lost players on defense, right? Like, they lost Daniil Hunter. They've, like, at least from a personnel standpoint, they are not better on defense. And all they really did was replace Kirk Cousins with Sam Darnold, who I would say Sam Darnold is a worse quarterback than Kirk Cousins. So, like, almost in every way, and they don't have TJ Hawkinson, almost in every way based on, like, what this Vikings team is this year from a personnel standpoint, they're worse than last year. I think they caught the Niners and the Texans with their pants down. I'm not buying it. I'm just not. Jordan Love returns this week. And then last year against the Blitz, he had a 102 passer rating, 12 touchdowns, and 1 pick. So like that's the perfect matchup. That's all Brian Flores does. All Brian Flores does is he zone blitzes and leaves two guys like high, right? Like it's the whole Mel Kiper meme. Like we need to ban like two high defenses. It's because Flores has had success. I don't know. Like for me, I'm not the biggest Jordan Love guy in the world, but I mean, you look at how Malik Willis was operating in this offense last week. Like Jordan Love is surely better than Malik Willis, and surely should have some success here. He's gonna probably have to like be I don't know, look into a slot receiver because I don't think the stuff like deep will be open against this Vikings team, but I think he could carve him up with like Jaden Reed working out of the slot, right? Could be a big yak game for them. I think he's Jordan Love will be good enough here to be able to navigate that blitz. Um, my next point is Matt LaFleur, a top three coach in the league. So these last 2 weeks, what Matt LaFleur has done has just completely convinced me with Malik Willis. I have been so wrong about this. Last year we had like last year we were kicking around like doing an episode of just like head coaches we hated and should be fired, right? And at least the three that made it on the thumbnail were Ron Rivera, Brandon Staley, and Dennis Allen. And I was pounding the table to get Matt LaFleur on there because it was like that period of time where Jordan Love was struggling. I think the Packers like 2-5 and 2-6 or something. And Yanni's thought I was like crazy. Yanni's like, what are you doing? No, LaFleur's a good coach. And I was like, I was beating the Aaron Rodgers did everything for him drum, but what he has put on tape the last 2 weeks with a guy who has not been a real NFL quarterback, that's all I needed to see. The dude is legit. The dude is legit. I love this coaching matchup. I think that if anybody's going to scheme up stuff, right, to beat Flores and take advantage of that constant blitzing, it's going to be LaFleur. Sam Darnold's regression is incoming. I mean, in my opinion, he looks better, right? Sam has looked great this year. I believe he's number two right now in the MVP voting. Colin Cowherd is making very excited like Twitter clips saying MVP Sam Darnold, Vikings winning the Super Bowl. So like a lot of the Sam Darnold truthers have kind of been, basking in the glory of this year. I think he's better, but I still think he's playing way over his skis. I don't see this being like a Baker Mayfield situation, right? Last year, the Packers defense, they have been soft. They have given up a lot of yards this year, but they've also been opportunistic. They've had a ton of picks. I believe last week in the head-to-head that I lost, Yanni had pointed out that they had the best turnover differential in the league. They went plus again against the Colts. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I would imagine they're still one of the best though. And Sam Darnold is always liable to just kind of start seeing ghosts and throw those picks to nobody, right? So in my opinion, that it's the right side here. Perfect buy low, sell high, and a fun side bet for the fans if you're a prop better. Sam Darnold to throw at least one interception is minus 145. I don't love the value on that, but based on that line, Vegas is definitely betting on him making a mistake here. What do you think about this one, Yanni? Am I just out of my mind about this Vikings team? Am I disrespecting them too much?
No, I mean, so what I was going to make this reference to, like, when you asked me in the beginning of the show, right? I think there's this weird all or nothing thing that like social media has created where we all have to have a take that either something's garbage or something's incredible. That's it. You can't just say like, hey, something's like a 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10. To me, like the Vikings have ascended to the point where they're on win a playoff game watch this year. So like I wouldn't have coming into the year, I wouldn't have even said they were going to make the wild card. Like I would have been shocked if they were wild card contenders. Now I'm willing to say that I'm looking out for them to maybe win a game in the wild card round, right? So like that's a pretty big to me, I would say that's a pretty big like tier bump that I've given them. But like, MVP candidate or one of the best 5 teams in football, I just think is silly, right? So yeah, I think you're right in saying the public's overvaluing that. For the Packers, so to me, this was just a weird one that I didn't want to bet on because Brian Flores has destroyed two of the best Shanahan schemes in football with C.J. Stroud and Brock Purdy, right? The original Shanahan scheme in Shanahan, and now he's going against another Shanahan disciple this week. But there's something a little different in the way that the LaFleur system and the way that Love processes blitzes. He really makes you pay on blitzes. He really hurt. Do you remember we were at the NFC divisional game last year? Love will rip off those chunk plays against the blitz. And currently the Packers have two. Christian Watson is 6th overall in QBR when targeted in football this year. And that's playing 2 games with Malik Willis. Jaden Reed and Dobbs are both in the top 36 with quarterback rating when targeted. So, I mean, they have the receivers that will make you pay on the back end of those blitzes. So I think you're on the right side of it. I just didn't know it's a strength for strength thing for me. I really think the story of the Vikings this year has been more so their defense. The fact that their offense is going off. I mean, they've had the freedom to kind of run the ball, to hit their play action passes, to do all this stuff. And then So the last thing I would say though is even if you think Sam Darnold's going to regress, which I think there's a good chance. Remember, he looked like an MVP for 4 weeks in Carolina too. Even if you think he's going to regress, which he probably will from where he is, he's not going to play at a top 3 quarterback pace rest of the season. They're adding Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson back into this offense as the year goes on. Jordan Addison was one of the most targeted rookies in NFL history his rookie year. TJ Hawkinson's one of the best tight ends in football. So the regression and the drop off might not look as dramatic as you think if they're adding those two pieces to their offense. And while Addison's been out, Naylor's had time to really develop into what looks like an elite kind of slot receiver guy. So, yeah, I'm really curious to see. I think it's one of the most interesting stories in football, to be honest with you.
Hey, Vikings to win a playoff game, that's some serious respect. I just I don't know how they
I'm
even
saying,
get in.
well,
Like that'd be like who's missing then? Are the Packers missing the playoffs or the Lions
no,
missing the
no,
playoffs?
no.
Then it would have to
I
be like the Cardinals or Seahawks or even Niners that miss the playoffs, right? Like
no,
someone's gonna
no,
get left out of the dance.
no. I would guess it's going to be like. First of all, I still think the Niners are winning the West, and I think the Eagles are winning the East. So to me, it would be like that tier of the Cowboy. I think two teams would get in from the North in that case, right? Because I think the Packers and the Lions and the Vikings would be all competing. And then you would have like Dallas and Seattle grinding for that last spot. Maybe the Saints or the Bucks, depending on. I think either the Saints or the Bucks are going to drop off, though. Here, probably the Saints feel more likely to drop off to me. So, I mean, that's not implausible at all, especially considering all these teams are 2-1 and 3-0 in the North right now. Now, maybe they start damaging each other to the point where they fall off, but 3-0 or 2-1, man, they're looking good right now.
Fair
But
enough.
we'll get into it as we go in here. I don't think the Seahawks hold on. I don't think the Saints hold on to the pace they've set early on here.
All right, let's
So
get into the next one, and I'm gonna let you have it, just because I've taken
nice.
the last two.
Nice. Okay, so I'm taking the Steelers minus 2.5. Ted is on the other side. What is the spread for the Colts in this one? Is it 2.5
Plus
plus
two
two and
and
a
a
half?
half, yeah.
Right, right. All right, it's the same. Okay, plus 2.5. So 85% of the money is on the Steelers, 90% of the total bets. I am up 1-0 on our head-to-heads this year because I know football better than Ted, and it's indisputable. So this is a massive majority, but it's honestly, you get so lucky with these picks. You can pretend like you knew exactly what's going on. You look at trends, you try to do your best. People who gloat really heavily after it, a lot of the time you just got lucky. And I probably did get a little lucky last week. But I do think it's interesting, right? So I'm 1-0. And just like last week, the massive majority of the money is on the Steelers here again. But we have the same split that me and Ted disagreed on last week. And I'm curious to hear his thoughts at the end of this about why he's willing to roll the dice again this week. Anthony Richardson has 6 interceptions through 3 weeks. The one against the Bears on the goal line is one of the worst plays I've ever seen, ever, where he has triple coverage and he lobs the ball to Tremaine Edmonds, who's basically a DN playing middle linebacker. He gets an easy pick. And the Steelers are averaging 3 sacks per game and 1.3 interceptions per game. And TJ Watt has had like 5 sacks called back from penalty. They should be up more like in 4 to 5 sack per game range right now. The defense has given up 26 points all year. And in my opinion, the Steelers are the worst matchup in football for the quarterback, period. Whether that's fantasy, whether that's overall, between the pass rush, between the pass defense, between the time of possession game that Arthur Smith plays, where he's willing to sit there and grind the ball. They're willing to hold the ball. Justin Fields will take not scoring points over turning the ball over and giving you the ball in their half of the field. He has 1 turnover this year. Tomlin now, so here's an interesting trend that Ted's on the right side of. As a road favorite, Tomlin is 32-40-2. However, as a road underdog, he's 41-28-1. That's about an 18% difference in his win rate, whether he's a road underdog or a road favorite. And this is where me and Ted we debate all week about random stuff. Like I've said before, we argue like siblings, right? But one of the big sticking points between us is, in his opinion, beating Kirk Cousins on a peg leg. Kirk looked rough, man, that first week. Bo Nix in his second career start and Justin Herbert with a high ankle sprain does not constitute an impressive showing for a defense. I would argue that going back to last year, the Steelers have had this trend. They make life hell for quarterbacks. We have a debate about is Joey Porter Jr. elite or not. I think he's ascending into that elite cornerback 1 status. I think Minka has always been an elite safety. But, is he above average? Is he elite? There's actually a big difference there, So the Steelers have only scored 3 touchdowns in 3 weeks, but they are 3-0, and they're going up against the most talented QB they've seen in Shane Steichen's scheme. Ted is fading the public. He's going against the trend. He's going against me this week. So I just want to highlight, though, it is the same disagreement we had last week about look at the turnover rate, look at the quarterback play, and then look at the defensive matchup. He's willing to bet on the massive talent of Richardson. I'll let him kind of get into that. I'm not. I'm not in this matchup. Overall, long term, sure. In this matchup, I think they're going to make his life hell. I think they're going to be beating him up on the line. I think the Colts' best bet at this point moving forward is to slam the ball with Jonathan Taylor. And against the Steelers, man, uh, are you really going to be able to grind them down with the run? Maybe Jonathan Taylor is one of the most talented running backs in football, maybe. And maybe that does decide the game. But overall, I think it's going to be a low play total game. I think it's going to be a really low play total. Shane Steichen earned his living last year off really high play counts and really effective rushes, but then hitting those passes too. Like, dude, Pittman was kind of the cornerstone of their team last year. Whatever Richardson's going through with his accuracy, and Josh Allen went through this for the first 2 years and pulled out of it, but at the moment, his accuracy is simply not NFL quarterback ready. And I think it is going to ultimately cost them the game. I expect a turnover or two. I expect maybe a sack fumble. And I also do think the Steelers offense is ascending. Calvin Austin looks really good his first game. He had a nice 60-yard touchdown. Yeah, that's my read on the game. What do you got?
Well, okay. So let's start with the Steelers offense because that's the thing that's freshest in my mind. I am selling this Steelers offense all the way down the river. I think they are not a good offense at all. Like, you've scored 3 touchdowns in 3 weeks against not great competition, right? Like I like the Falcons defense. The Broncos, I think, are whatever, and then the Chargers, I don't think they have a very good defense either. Jim has them playing well, but like, to me, the way the Steelers have played football is they're playing not to lose the games, and against the competition they've played so far, they've gotten away with it, right? Like, the other teams couldn't score on them. Look at that, 26 points in 3 weeks. That's incredible. That's like a dominant college defense level of like production, right? Like, that's like 80s football. And this is something that I've said about the Steelers team all off season. I've argued about it on Twitter with people. I've been beating the drum on this forever. The way this league is, right? Like, if you're an offense and you just don't have the upside to ever score over 20 points, and you have to go to your defense and say, hey, like, this offense is never getting over 20. You need to hold the other team down, like have a stellar defensive performance. And then maybe if we're going to score, probably one of those has to come from you on a defensive touchdown, right? I just don't think that's sustainable in this league. And the reason that I'm on this game, there's I'm coming at it from a couple different angles, right? One of which is the number that I'm getting. Plus 2.5, usually I would call that the wrong side of the hook. Obviously, a field goal is 3, right? And plus 3.5 is way better than plus 2.5. So a lot of times I would look at that line and say I'm not getting much value at that number. And I don't know, people who have watched the show, I kind of have noticed that I perform the best betting on short favorites. The reason I really like this plus 2.5 number is because I don't think this Steelers offense is very good. If they're going to win the game, the only way I see them doing it is in a really low scoring, disgusting, like, I don't know, 13-10 type of game, right? Or just one of those like games that just gets ugly and there's not much going on. Both of the offenses are hard to look at. If the Steelers win this game, Anthony Richardson is going to have a hard day at the office. So when I look at that, right, like 2.5 points, well, it's not that much, and it is missing the key side of the number in a low scoring matchup like this. I think it's actually pretty significant. And I'm getting a home dog too. I'm betting on Tomlin as a road favorite, which he's not as bad as a road favorite, as good as like as equally to as good as he is as an underdog, but I mean the trends are there. So for all of those reasons, and quite honestly, I think that even though Anthony Richardson has been struggling, I believe in the kid. I think he can do it. I love Shane Steichen. Like,
Yep.
what the Colts did last year, they almost made the playoffs. They were one drop pass away from knocking the Texans out of the playoffs and being in there themselves with Gardner Minshew. So I love the coach. I love the talent of the quarterback, even though he's struggling. I think that this is a step up in difficulty for these Steelers, even though the Colts have looked terrible at portions of the year, right? Like that Packers game in week 2, I'm sure Yanni saw that and it burned him, and he's never gonna look at this Colts team the
Twice
same way.
for me,
Like,
twice. I
yeah,
parlayed that game.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like to me, right? Like the Colts, they have a really bad rush defense. That's their thing. They can't stop the run unless they're playing specifically the Chicago Bears, who couldn't hold a block to save their life, right? So it could profile as a big Steelers run game, but they got that boy Najee Harris with the cement shoes back there. No Jalen Warren this week. Like, I mean, if you want to get 3 yards at a time with Najee, you can do that, but I don't see any explosives coming out of this game. And just as a whole, I think Justin Fields, I think the Steelers fans on Twitter are a little bit too loud and too excited about the product he's put on the field. It's not good so far. He's playing not to lose, and I think that if he gets in a game where he's forced to actually do something, we're gonna see old Justin Fields with the turnovers again. So that's why I'm on it. We'll see though. Fact of the matter is I'm down 0-1 in our head-to-heads, and the public does not agree with me at all. But this is a big fade the public week for me, so I'm fine with it.
Okay, this was a game I was a lot more excited about before I saw the weather report, but I'm still going to roll with it. It doesn't look good for me, though. Bucks at plus 1.5. However, 18% of the total money bet and 21% are on the Bucks. So, public, sharps, whales, whatever, heavy on the Eagles. Look, Vita Vea's back, or he should be back. He logged limited practices end of this week. He is the heart and soul of that Bucks rush defense. So there's a question about Saquon Barkley. You know, it's interesting, right? To me, he is the most valuable asset in fantasy this year. I think if he keeps it up and if they keep winning, he should be a legitimate MVP candidate. I mean, I think that highly of what he's putting on the field. But he is actually at like 1.3 yards per carry less than DeAndre Swift had at this point last year with the Eagles. So I guess there's just a little bit of a question: is he going to keep it up, or is this just that early season explosion and his injuries and his age are going to start showing here toward as we get in the middle of the season? I don't think so, but there's at least a question there, and Vita Vea certainly makes that more likely. The Bucks have a little bit of recent historical ownage over the Eagles. They're 4-1 outright since 2018, and they also eliminated them from the playoffs last year. They did, however, have their one loss against them in the regular season last year. But that Eagles defense was a lot different the first quarter of the year, I would say, than they have been since, really. The Bucks' strength is on passing offense, and the Eagles' weakness is in their secondary. And now, so this is a weather permitting thing, right? If they're able to pass the ball, I do not see the Eagles having a good performance against Mike Evans and Godwin. Mike Evans is due for a little bit of positive regression here. I think he probably has a big game, again, assuming it's not like 40-mile-an-hour winds. It looks like Bucky Irving's going to be in the game, which will help him a little bit with that short yardage ground and pound. And so just generally speaking, look, the Eagles are missing Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown. Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown are arguably the best 1-2 punch at receiver in the NFL. If not, they're certainly one of them. You know, you have Ayuk and Debo, you have Diggs and Collins, you have Hill and Waddle, but they are right there. They are absolutely one of the most talented pairings in football. And I actually thought AJ Brown was going to chase the over number one overall receiving title this year before his hamstring. Kind of bummed about that, but it's a huge deal for Philly. That should not be discounted. And Jalen does stupid shit when he has to put the team on his back. But what did they have? 15 points last week against the Saints,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Okay. 15 points last week against the Saints, and I actually do think the Bucks are semi-close as a defense. Probably not as good, but they're up in that, kind of range. I think if this comes down to Jalen putting the game on his back, if Saquon has another generational performance, sure, they will probably win. I'll probably bust on the bet, but it is on Saquon's shoulders. I think if they end up falling behind a little bit, if they end up having to pass, I think the lack of weapons is going to catch up with them. I think it's a strength for strength thing in terms of they're going to want to run the ball, and the Bucks do not like you running the ball. They do not let you run the ball. Todd Bowles, for whatever he is or is not, he is certainly a great defensive mind, and he's proven it over the years. And, I think Kellen Moore is very good, but Kellen Moore's game is not predicated on running the ball. It's predicated on high play count and one of the highest neutral passing rates in football. So these weapons being out does seriously impact the way I view them as an offense. I think they got pretty lucky last week. And I'm wondering if it's going to catch up to them this week. So yeah, give me the Bucks plus 1.5 at home.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one for me, right? Because I think I've been pretty consistent all year saying that I view the Eagles as the second best team in the NFC. I'm a huge believer in what they got going on there, regardless of whether or not their coach makes some of the dumbest decisions of all time. For me, though, Devontae Smith and AJ Brown single-handedly make me not want to bet this game at all. I think if both of them were in, they're probably worth like 4 or 5 points to the spread. We'd be looking at like Eagles as 3 or 4 point favorites, and I would take them. But
all day.
without them, I won't do it because I don't know how Jalen will be able to carry the Eagles passing game without them. Right? You have Dallas Goddard, who, in my opinion, is probably going to be the tight end one this week. But then, other than that, you have Jahad Dotson, who like just got to town, and you got a bunch of nobodies, right? So in my mind, this game is going to be, if the Eagles have success, just entirely on Saquon. And the Bucks, right? Like they're going, it's strength against weakness. So I see the vision on this bet. I think you're right, but the way this weather is, right? Like that's liable to ruin the game entirely. I don't feel bad about sitting this one out, but I don't
I
hate the
wasn't
pick.
when I saw that weather come in, dude. I went, oh god, because it's way more likely to affect the passing game than the rushing game.
Mhm.
So it's, but I'm rolling with it.
We'll see. Bucky Irving over 150 rush yards.
No,
Let us
sir. No, sir. He is coming off that hamstring. He is coming off that hamstring.
let us know in the comments if you bet on a Bucky Irving rushing prop and what it is. I like the fella. I think he's talented.
If it's like 37 and a half or like 46 and a half, I would maybe bet that prop. All right, me again on this one. Browns at the Raiders. I'm taking the Browns minus 1.5 on the road. 52% of the money's on the Browns, 41% of the total bet. So a little bit of a discrepancy, but not incredibly noteworthy. To me, this comes down to simply no Devonte Adams, no Max Crosby. Last year, whenever the Raiders would get a big win, it really felt like it was basically just Devonte Adams go be incredible in the receiving game, Max Crosby go be incredible and destroy the game on the D line. I would probably say right now Max Crosby is one of the 3 to 5 most influential defenders in football. It's really remarkable to see that guy. Very rarely do you see a defender that it's like, oh, that guy is just dominating the game for his team. There are not a whole lot of them. There are guys you see all the time out there, but I'm talking about when they're winning the game. You have, your TJ Watts of the world. Honestly, Nick Bosa has not been in that tier for about 2 weeks, or 2 years, I would say. Sadly, I would say Fred Warner. You'll see him out there doing that sort of stuff. TJ Watt, Max Crosby, the list gets pretty short from there. There are very few defenders where you go, this guy, Aaron Donald, used to be one of them, right? Max Crosby is one of those players, make no mistake about it. So when you take out Devontae Adams, when you take out Max Crosby against a pretty damn good defense, like the Browns are a lot of things, but they are not slackers on defense. I just don't know, man. To me, it's a pretty straightforward thing. I think the Browns will be able to run the ball. They're going to be able to control the ball. And then the Raiders are going to have serious problems moving the ball on offense. Is Antonio Brown or Antonio Pierce at a huge coaching disadvantage? Stefanski's been good historically. I don't know if Antonio Brown's an NFL caliber head coach. I know he was really exciting. I know they hired him because his players love him. I don't know. I don't know if you should let who your players like be dictating these things. I think he's okay. I think they've shown some degree of culture when you're winning games like the Chiefs and the Ravens, the last, whatever the last 10 or 12 regular season games. But when you're having these player only meetings where there's the airing of grievances and that shit's going on in week 3 or 4, it's not a good sign for your culture. And when you're talking about, but when you bench your quarterback for 1 week and you're talking about, we don't know who's going to be our guy and now we know who's going to be it's a culture in disarray. It's a team in disarray. How could you possibly feel comfortable right now with the Raiders? And for whatever the Browns are, whatever, all of it's valid. All of the Deshaun criticism, all of it, totally valid. Probably a horrible human being. You have Njoku throwing hot oil on his face in the middle of the year last year. Just a mess of a franchise. But it's not as bad as the Raiders right now. So the Raiders killed someone last year or 2 years ago. Come on. So look, give me the Browns. Give me the Browns. Give me the Browns for a multitude of reasons. I don't know if they're going to have an answer for Amari Cooper. I don't know if they're going to have an answer for Ford. I certainly don't think they're going to have an answer on offense. Zamir White looks like he's running in mud. Alexander Madison has been their better running back this year, which is just insanity. Um, I don't just Devonte Adams getting traded here soon. Max Crosby said he'd like to go play for Detroit. It is a cluster F, as the slide there says. I'm very comfortable with this bet. I was very surprised Ted didn't take it. When I saw Devonte and Max rolled out, I texted him right away. Lock me in at the number -1.5. Completely relaxed with this pick. Feel good about it.
Yeah, so that was a show first. He texted me and said, "Lock me in at this number right now." So I took a screenshot of it. Surprisingly, the news of Devonte Adams being out did not change the number at all. All it did is it changed like the juice you'd get back on the bet a little bit. So to me, there's a lot to hate about this game. Full disclosure, I have been kind of beating the drum that this Raiders team is not as bad as we think that they are, and that Gardner Minshew is like a he's a fine quarterback, right? And going to be able to do what he needs to do to orchestrate this offense. The issue to me, right, is if you know, if your head coach is talking about benching a guy that was like before last week he was like second in the league in passing yards, right? Like he led you to a great comeback against the Ravens, and then you have one bad week against the Panthers, and now you're like talking about benching him. Like, what are we doing here, right? I just don't. To me, Antonio Pierce, I don't know. I think he's probably a good motivator, right? I think he's probably a great locker room guy, which is why they wanted him there, but it could be a coaching disadvantage. I don't know. Full disclosure, if Devonte Adams was playing, I was taking the Raiders +1.5 here, just because I hate everything about this Browns team. I categorically will not bet on Tug as a favorite ever, ever. Like I mean, you can do it, and sometimes like I bet against him week 2 against the I was on the Jaguars against the Browns. Turns out the Jaguars are a tire fire too. But I mean it bites me in the butt sometimes, but generally speaking, I'm usually pretty happy when I'm not betting on this Browns team and Deshaun Watson. I think by proxy you're on the right side, but it turns into one of those toilet bowls where like anything could happen and it could get a little weird. So cautiously optimistic here, but I would stay. I'm not betting this one. That's for sure. I'm surprised you thought that I was going to be on this.
Dude, think about what you just said though. It's a really good point. He was second in the NFL in passing yards going into week 3 and got benched in week 3 and then was maybe not their starter by week 4. Dude, that's a mess. That's like a middle linebacker meathead trying to smash his way into a successful football team. Like that's just not how the NFL works. It's just not.
Well,
So
we'll see if Antonio Pierce has the boys ready to play on Sunday. They
I'd
better
like
be.
what I'd like to see is I would like to see the Jets calling them. I'd like to see the Bills calling them. I'd like to see the 49ers calling them about Devontae Adams. Get Devontae out of there. Get him to a team that matters. And I think it's going down soon. There's been a lot of talk, dude, that business decisions thing has to do with Devontae Adams sitting out. You wonder. You just wonder. Is this the breaking point for the team as a whole?
It's crazy because like he was so dead set on going there, right? Like he was like the Raiders are like my childhood favorite team. I always wanted to play with the Raiders. Derek Carr is there, it's gonna be great. And then it's like Derek Carr is out within a year, and the Raiders just remain the most snake bitten franchise of like all
Yep.
time. Like I mean the Browns were there too, but they've at least had a couple of playoff appearances where they've looked good. The Raiders have just been it's been
Dude,
rough ever since losing that Super Bowl. I don't know. It's got to be like one of the hardest like franchises to be a fan of.
if they lose by 2 or 3 scores here, I think this thing is imploding. Like I think it's imploding in a special way we haven't seen in the NFL in a little while. We'll see. Looking forward to it.
All
What?
right. All right, we got our first consensus of the week. We have there's two consensus picks this week. This is and we also have a doubleheader on Monday night in my parlays for the Monday night doubleheader. So we are both on the Titans +1.5 here. Or actually, I'm on the Titans money line here, and Yanni is on the Titans +1.5. So this like cash and bets breakdown is really, really interesting. 34% of the money is on the Titans against the spread, and 77% of the money is on the Titans money line pick. And then 42% of the bets are on the Titans against the spread, and 66% of the bets are on the Titans money line. So I just want to do my spiel. I did this last year. I'll do it again. A lot of times when you see a line like this, right, where you like a short underdog In this case, the Titans are only 1.5 point underdog. Unless you specifically think that 1 point is going to be a huge difference, a lot of times it's beneficial to just say, yeah, I'll take a money line, right? Because it changes the odds. It went from like, I believe the Titans plus 1.5 is a minus 120 odds bet. And just saying whatever, take the point makes it a 2-1 bet, a plus 100 bet. So just to all bettors out there, you're leaving something on the table. If you're like not doing that, right? And I think the way the breakdown is very interesting too, right? Like because less people are on the Titans against the spread, which means they're betting on the Dolphins. So apparently that 1 point is super important to that sect of bettors and the people who are betting just to win the game, right? That's a heavy majority, and they're saying screw the point. So I think there's like just a little betting philosophy split here, which I think is interesting, and you very rarely see it like that, right? So the Titans are 0-3 and have not looked good at any point this year. Will Levis was a guy I was really excited about coming into the year. I thought he had a lot of potential. I thought he showed a lot of things last year that would translate well with another year under his belt, a couple more games under his belt. It has just not been that so far. He's transformed into Carson Wentz Jr. They're one of the last 0-3 teams. There's only three left. It's the Bengals, the Titans, and the Jaguars are the only 0-3 teams left. So
The Dolphins aren't 0-3.
did I say Dolphins?
No, I'm saying the Dolphins aren't 0-3.
No, no, they beat the Jaguars week one. They came back.
Oh my god, I
They were
forgot.
14 points down to the Jaguars. They came back and
Oh,
won.
go
Yeah.
on. Sorry to go.
No, you're all good, man. Like, I don't know. I think the vibes around this Titans team right now are that they're just an absolute shambles, right? Like, just seeing those Twitter clips of Will Levis do dumb things, like, the public will turn on you very quickly when that's out there. That being said, though, I think there is something to like about this Titans team, and it's their defense. Their defense has played really well over the first 3 weeks. Granted, they got their lunch stolen by Matt LaFleur last week and Malik Willis, but I think maybe they just underestimated the Malik Willis revenge game. I don't know. I think that what we saw the first 2 weeks of this deep from this Titans defense is more indicative of what they are as a unit. And they're going against a Dolphins team that fundamentally, like, they're just broken without Tua. It's like the contrast between how the Dolphins look with and without Tua. I don't think there's a bigger, like, maybe if I don't know, the Chiefs lost Mahomes, but even then, like, I think Chad Henne could probably do a better job filling in and doing what he needs to do on that team than like getting a
Yeah,
Tua replacement. It's just in shambles, man. Like the over under is 36 and a half. Like this Dolphins team at full strength, they're liable to go over that just by themselves, right? So this is a bet on that defense, and we think that Will Levis can stay out of his own way enough, just enough to get a win here. It's not going to take that many points to beat the Dolphins. I think this is like, I think this is going to be a ground and pound game. We're kind of catching a falling knife here with this Titans team. And like just as a side note, in what world are the Dolphins like Vegas favorites here? I don't understand that at all. It feels like I don't know. Like it must just Vegas must be taking Will Levis's like struggles extremely seriously here to the point where you're gonna make Snoop Huntley in his first start ever with the team, who was just acquired a week ago. Like you think a guy's gonna walk in and hasn't been on the team for more than a week and is gonna beat a great defense?
yeah.
I don't see it at all personally. Do you have any extra thoughts on this one, Yanni? Are you upset you didn't take the money line, or are you
Yeah,
valuing that point?
kind of am. So, I kind of am. And I just sort of went through, man, I'm burnt. I had midterms this week. I had a lot to do this week, man. And so, I just sort of went through and went, well, the Titans are winning that one. Bang. And you're right. I should have thought of it. You're totally right. That's okay. We'll learn a lesson. Um, no, I mean, so yeah, I think one of the bigger narratives this year about the Dolphins should be that Tua deserves a lot more respect as a player. Um, Dude, to have that level of weaponry on offense and the team just falls apart without him, pretty crazy. Um, yeah, that's really it. I mean, look, the Titans have had a really effective running game this year. If Will Levis does not give the game away, they should be 2-1. They absolutely should be 2-1, and in no way, if they were 2-1, should the game be plus 1.5 for them. So it's really just Will Levis has blown it. And where the Titans have looked the most vulnerable was to the rushing game with the Packers. And I understand that you may say, well, Snoop Huntley's going to come in and run that read option, with A-Chain and Mostert, and they're going to do all this stuff. But the Dolphins actually, A-Chain's production has been as a receiver. As a rusher, A-Chain is bottom 5 in rushing efficiency right now, and Mostert averaged 1.5 yards a carry when he was in there the first week. Their rushing attack has been garbage. So if their plan is to come in like Green Bay did and run the ball all over the Titans, I there's no way. There's
Good
just no way.
good luck running the ball down Jeffrey Simmons' throat in the middle.
Dude, all
That's
of
a
them,
tough task. Yeah, it's a good
man.
defense. They're a really
Yeah,
good defense, and
and they're going to run the ball. Pollard's going to run the ball against like a bottom 5 rush defense.
the
I
Dolphins are in like a tough spot, man. Like to me, right? Like we were saying this all last year, even with Tua in the game, like they were never beating the good teams, right? Like that was one of our best bets ever. Whenever the Dolphins played a real team, we just bet on the other team, right? And be like, yeah, no, this Dolphins team can't beat good competition. But without Tua, they're like potentially the worst team in the league. So like if you're not competing for a Super Bowl, right, and you're paying this quarterback top of the line money to just win, to just beat bad teams, at what point do you blow it up, right? Like I don't know. That's like a John Middlecoff take. I don't know if I'd blow it up, but
you can you can't. Not when you're paying that kind of money to the receivers and they extended Mike McDaniels.
yeah.
It's no, dude. They're in a weird you see them a lot. I always call them the levels fights in boxing or MMA. I've used that reference multiple times with the Dolphins. You see these guys that are hot and flashy prospects, and they will beat up on everyone to a point. And then when they start pushing for that top 10 ranking, that top 5 ranking, they're going to start losing fights. And then all of a sudden, kind of it wears off. And it just looks to me like the Dolphins are going to be sort of those, whenever they hit a levels fight, they're going to lose until they develop more physicality, more of an O line. Dude, they got rid of it was that guy Robert Hunt, correct? He went where?
I don't know.
Believe to Carolina, and he
Oh
has
yeah,
turned
that's
their
right.
line, and he's turned their offensive line into one of the top like 10 O lines in football. This idea that you can just get weapons and F the O line, it's not how football is played. It's won in the trenches. The Dolphins have no trench game at all. And Tua could get the ball out in 2 seconds or less, which kept him floating offensively. Snoop Huntley cannot do that. That requires a really high cognitive level. Dude, you have to be cognitively like locked into what that offense is. Like Brock Purdy could run that offense no problem. You know,
Yeah.
Mahomes could run that offense no problem. CJ Stroud could run that offense no problem. I don't think Snoop Huntley and Skylar Thompson can.
Well, Skylar Thompson's actually out for this game, so we are one twisted ankle away from the Tim Boyle experience again. But yeah, feeling really good about this pick. I think it's a good one. And last but not least, we got the Seahawks going into Detroit to play the Lions. We're both on the Lions, -3.5 here. No money line business here. This is the second leg of my parlay. The over under is 46.5. So 82% of the money is on the Lions here, and 75% of the bets are on the Lions. This is our
Jeez.
second consensus of the week. And the public is with us. The public is not buying this 3-0 Seattle Seahawks football team, and neither are we. Seattle so far on the way to their impressive 3-0 record has beaten Bo Nix at his first career start, Jacoby Brissett and the Patriots who took them to overtime, and this Dolphins team that we were just talking about in Tim Boyle. So I've seen a lot of takes that are saying this Seattle defense by all the metrics, right? PFF has them graded as like the top defense right now. They have like 3 players in their secondary who are just like PFF darlings. To me, like this kind of goes to my whole dumping on the analytics nerds things, right? Like you can look at a chart and you could say, well, by the numbers, they're the best defense, but you have to take it into context and look at who they've beaten, right? And the teams that they've played. And I think it's fair to ask if they're even good, right? Like we know Mike McDonald came to town. We know Mike McDonald is a defensive mind, and we know there were pieces on that defense that some people liked. I don't think we know anything about them yet. So I'm not comfortable saying that they're good or good enough to stop the Lions or their run game, right? Seattle last year, they were like a bottom 5 unit in terms of stopping the run. They brought in Byron Murphy, who has been playing well. He's definitely a player that fit what their scheme needed. But that being said, this Lions team, this is what they've done for years. They play bully ball, they push you around. I believe, even considering their bad competition this year, Seattle is like 15th against the run, which is not like a top level unit. So we see the Lions being able to have success here, kind of impose their will with Monty, rip off big games with Gibbs. And on the other side, right, like the Lions D line has just been a monster. They're number one against the rush this year, and they're like the biggest pass funnel in the league. Like I said this about the Titans defense last year, how it's impossible to run on them and how they kind of play defenses to funnel into the pass game and make you throw. So it's going to all be on Gino and his own line to try and, pass protect and be able to distribute the ball. Gino has been passing a lot this year, at least since week 2. Brian Grubb, a lot of people are excited about him as a coordinator, but at the same time, right? Like you're going against Aiden Hutchinson, who is leading the league with 6.5 sacks. Your O line is like bottom 2 in the league in like pass and rush blocking metrics. Like, can he overcome that? Can Geno Smith go into Detroit, drop back 50 times this game, throw for over 300 yards and multiple scores, which I think he's going to have to do to keep up with this Lions offense? I don't see it at all. The Lions have not played their best football over the first 3 weeks. That's not lost on me. Jared Goff has looked a little weird. Like Yanni had mentioned, there was a pick six that got called back that could have potentially swung the game against Arizona. They outright lost to the Bucks, and then the Rams took them to overtime week 1. So yeah, they haven't been playing great football, and Seattle has had like the easiest schedule, the dream schedule. So we're calling this a great buy low on Detroit and a sell high on this fraudulent Seattle team. Lions three
Yeah.
and a half, hammer it. And by the way, this number it opened at -5.5, and it's gotten bet down by like the wise guys, right? Like you got your Chad Millmans that are in there, and they're saying, oh well, we should take the Seahawks. They're a sneaky good 3-0 team. This is going to be such a reality check for those people. The Seahawks fans are just going to be crying right now. I've seen way too much stuff in the NFC West, like meme war on
Yep.
Reddit. These
Yep.
Seahawks fans are victory lapping their Tim Boyle victories. This is what regression looks like, boys. Get used to it. You're going to lose a lot more football games. Your team isn't that good. Anything you want to add on to this Seahawks hate, Yanni? I just get going on this Seahawks team and how much I hate them, and I'll go on a roll if you don't stop
Yeah.
me.
Well, they just no. I mean, so one, the way their fans behave, they deserve it. But does the team deserve that level of fade? I mean, I think we're going to find out this week. We again, we've argued about this a little bit during the week, right? I will fundamentally view their team differently if they slap around the Lions. I think any NFL team that can slap around the Lions, I view them as a different team. You alluded to it, 31st in pass block win rate and 31st in rush block win rate for Seattle. Aiden Hutchinson doesn't just have 6.5 sacks. He pressures on 25% of his opponent's dropbacks. And, they have Cross. Cross is really playing out of his mind. The rest of the O-line's been bad. So what NFL teams will just do is put Aiden Hutchinson on the other tackle. So then you have a situation where, and by the way, the Lions are currently allowing dead last place in fantasy points. So basically running back production to the running back position, right, this year. So you have a situation where I think Detroit controls the ball. They'll be able to run it pretty freely against what is at best a middling rush defense, but that is a middling rush defense against pretty bad offenses. So I'd call them more bottom third of the league. So Detroit controls the ball. They're rushing the ball. They're controlling time of possession. They're probably able to score here, right? Pretty freely. I don't think they're going to have too many problems. And then all of a sudden, Seattle can't run the ball. So what are they going to do? They're going to ask Geno to win them a game in a game where they are not winning pass blocking reps very often, and Aiden Hutchinson could potentially pressure Geno 25 to 35% of the dropbacks. Well, if that's going on, good luck to you. I mean, that's really hard unless Geno's going to be getting that ball out in 1.5, 1.8, 2.1 seconds. And if you're doing that, you're not going to have those downfield routes developing with JSN, with Lockett, with Metcalf that you kind of rely on for their explosives in that offense. If Kenneth Walker the third plays, he's going to be less than 100%. You'll be splitting reps with Sharp. Sharp wasn't particularly efficient when he got his touches the last 2 weeks. Neither one of them has been because their O-line does not win in rush blocks. So yeah, I think there are a lot of factors to fade the Seahawks here, but they are a well-coached team. They're a well-coached team with some premium players on it, both offensively and defensively. And again, it's a levels fight, right? They have been fighting unranked opponents and knocking them out. That does not. All that tells you is okay. Maybe they'll win against a ranked opponent. They have a ranked opponent this week. Okay, the Lions are a legitimate NFC team, and we're going to find out. And I have a feeling they're going to get kicked around.
If we're calling the Seahawks first three opponents unranked fighters, that means that the Patriots, the very unranked fighter, like took them to OT. So what is that? Like took them
Well,
the
exactly.
distance and like the Seahawks wanted a split decision? Like
It's like
I'm
yeah,
not very convinced of that at all. Even
that's what it is. Yeah,
there has been nothing about the Seahawks team that I've been convinced of, right? Like you said, good coaching. Like when has it not just been a blowout where the other team is incapable of running an offense other than that Patriots team, right? Like Tim Boyle and Skylar Thompson and the Dolphins fundamentally broken. So much so that we unanimously bet on
yeah,
Will Levis, right? Bo
yeah,
Nix in his first career start, like I mean, he looked good against the Bucks last week, but man, we were
yeah,
saying start no one. That is the most disgusting offense I've ever seen. Like they haven't I don't know.
yeah,
They haven't done they're the most unknown value to me. All I really know is that they're committing to passing the ball more, which is good for Gino. I actually have a roster where I picked up Gino. I hate these Seahawks, and I was like, I saw his passing charts. I was like, yep, sign me up. I'll take it. Backup quarterback. At
well,
any rate, we'll see how it goes, though. That's going to do it for us this week. If you made it through the entire video, thank you. Like, subscribe, hit the bell. Let us know in the comments who you got on Monday night between the Seahawks and the Lions. You better be saying Lions. And we'll catch you next week for the free agent episode.
thanks, guys.